On our show today, we have Dr. Rashara Givhan. She played basketball at Tennessee State University, got a master's at the University of Tennessee, and works for one of the largest corporations in the country. Rashara, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. We've known each other for a while, and I'm so excited to finally record one of these conversations because we've been talking about ways to help athletes over the years and things that they need, and parents and coaches. Will you talk a little bit about your story and how you got to where you are?
Well, okay. I started playing basketball when I was about 7 or 8, and didn't really play organized until I was in the 5th grade. But I learned playing with my cousins, my male cousins, and they made me tough.
You've had an amazing track to getting to playing college ball, and it sounds like education was the foundation of all of that. And there were people who saw something in you academically that pushed you there, but you still had love for the game. You know, oftentimes it's really glamorized about you're an athlete and that's all that you are. How did you decide that you wanted to make sure that academics were a key? I mean, you averaged 16 points and 12 boards. That's you got some game. And I know you have game because you still hoop. You know, imagine, what you were like in high school. Why?
I could actually then. Woo. You know what? It was my mom. My mother, oh my gosh. People would think this was abuse now. When I was, I guess 7, 8 years old, she always gave me tests. She made me, she would make me read the encyclopedias from A to Z, and I would have to write a paper. Plus, it used to be that the encyclopedias had vocabulary list in them. Mm-hmm. So I had to take tests on the vocabulary words for the next grade level. So if I'm in the 2nd grade, I'm taking a test on words from the 3rd grade and making sentences and I had to define them like I was at school. And she kept doing this until I was in the 9th grade.
Your story about your mother making you read the encyclopedia and making you define words speaks volumes to how intentional parents have to be to make sure that students, especially young athletes, are balanced and understand what's important. And they don't always have to understand why, but eventually they get it. Can you talk a little bit about your coaching? Like, you're a coach. You love ball probably more than anybody or close to anybody that I know. If you're not playing, you're coaching. So how have you taken what your mom's instilled in you, what you've learned over the years, and what do you teach your players?
Oh, number one, get your homework. You don't practice without doing your homework first. And if there's anything that they need help in, I'm more than happy to tutor and help them.
Because you're smart enough.
But, and it's so funny.
Would you elaborate on your point about students that do well academically are more confident on the court?
I think what happens is that part of their life is easier to accept, and they're learning. If I don't have to worry about so much what's going on, mental and emotional challenge, because I had never failed at anything, and me being injured in my mind was a failure. And how do you deal with a failure? How do you deal with failing? Do you just give up? Do you just say, you know what, I ain't gonna never do this no more? Because what I see so often with kids is that if they can't do something or they feel like they're not good at it, they don't do it.
Rashara, you are blowing me away that you knew so early what you wanted in regards to engineering. When did you find out what engineering is? And this is just real. Like, I came from the north side of St. Louis. I don't have any friends who are engineers. I didn't have any uncles, aunts who are engineers. Like, I would have never even thought about engineering. When I went to college, I had no idea. I thought, I'd major in sports psychology, and I took a psychology class and got a C and was like, I'm not doing psychology. Then I was thinking, well, sports marketing, and I took this econ class, didn't go too well. And so ended up with communications, which makes sense why I'm here now. But I don't feel like coming from where I came from, and a lot of the kids who play ball where I came from, even looking now, don't have that much exposure to different career paths. So how did you get exposed to engineering or even know what it was?
Girl, that's all God.
Okay.
I did not have anything to expose me to quote unquote engineering. What I had was this tinkering love. I love to build and design things.
Okay.
I when I was 8 and 9 years old, I was taking stuff apart and rebuilding it, putting it back together. I always wanted Lego or log blocks because I love to build and design stuff. I always had a race car track, so I was putting together the cars and engines, and I knew what the engine looked like and what the engine needed to do in order for my racing car to win.
Right.
And knowing normally that's a boy's thing, I didn't have a lot of that's a boy's toy. I had toys like that I was building.
Rashara, I said it earlier, but I really do mean you're probably the smartest coach that I know. Seriously. But it's important. I want to talk a little bit as we wrap up here about being a coach and the need to continue learning. Because one thing that I know about you is that you are always looking to learn. And oftentimes, we just gonna be real, like coaches tell kids to do stuff, but they're not reading books and they're not learning and they're not growing. And how have you embraced learning as a coach, as a professional and as a coach, and how has that impacted your ability to connect and teach your players?
Well, it's interesting that you even talk about this. I had a session last week with a young lady, and she wants to be a point guard. She's going to be a point guard because of her height. And I was thinking about, how to help this baby get to where she wants to be. And so I sat down and I watch professional basketball all the time, and I watch college basketball all the time. And I watched, it's sad to say, but I pay so much attention to footwork.
Definitely, of course.
And everything on what the ball players are doing and how they're getting better and everything. And when you study the game like that, and I'm not saying I eat and sleep NBA basketball. No, I don't, but I do pay attention, very close attention to what's going on the court, not just the scoring or the way people are doing stuff, but the dunk, right? I'm paying attention to everything that's going on the court, and I'm a learner. I've always been a learner. So I read books. I watch a lot of sports, but I try to balance myself to say, okay, how could this be effective or helpful to the next generation or the next kid that I meet?
Exactly. And Rashara, you say that you're not going to be a history maker, but you are. You absolutely are. And it's evident when you walk into a gym. If there's any basketball game going on in our area and you walk into a gym, undoubtedly you're going to see some kids who you've coached and that and when they run up to you and give you a big hug, that's when you know that you have made history in their life and that your impact on them is undeniable. And oftentimes when you do the work, you don't think about it because it's just who you are. But there's no question, because I've seen it with my own eyes how much kids love you. And so you have made history in many, many people's lives. And I want to be like you when I grow up. Before, seriously, I want to be hooping and I want to be, writing more books. And, you're absolutely phenomenal person. Educators, if people want to be engineers, if they're interested in publishing books, if they want to know how to help their kids in college with the college process, how can people reach you?
You can give me a call at 314-306-4898 or send me an email at rng120@yahoo.com. I will respond. I'm here to.
Well, that's exciting. Very exciting. Thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate your wisdom. Learned some new things about you that I didn't know. I thought I knew a lot, but I've definitely learned some new things. And I just look forward to working together and helping kids and parents in the future.
No problem. Thanks, Andy.